Hello everyone, Mike with Spray Jones coming to you with another video. We're going to get into the flash and bat question. Should we be putting 1 inch or 2 inches of closed cell spray foam on the inside of a wood structure and then supplementing it with bat insulation of some sort? Very popular, a lot of people doing it, and I think the answer today is going to shock you. But before we get into it, I want to thank everybody that has subscribed, checked out the videos, commented, and given us a thumbs up. Your feedback and your following this channel is making it all the difference in me continuing doing what I'm doing and sharing this information. If nobody cares what I have to say, I don't really want to keep making videos. So thank you very much for being here today and checking this out. All right, on to the question. So before we, I don't want to pick on anything here today, but you know that I'm a spray foam guy. You understand that, all right? I'm not a multi-insulation company. I'm a sole source specialist. I'm like a surgeon that is a specialist for some type of operation that you need. But I think we need to take a look seriously at what we're buying. If we're going to say that we want to put in loose fill insulation in the attic, or we want to put loose bat insulation into the walls, I think we should really seriously take a look at what we're going to be buying to supplement the spray foam. Wouldn't that make sense? And in order to do so, I've pulled up this article here that you're looking at here. Insulation Innovation Holds Promise for True Efficiency. Now, this is an article from 2007. Steve Maxwell, he's a special op-ed writer for the Toronto Star. And he begins by saying this: there's something less than ideal about the way that Canadian homes are insulated, and drywallers see it more than most. Surprisingly, hidden fact is that if it weren't for sheetrock, the inside surfaces of the exterior walls in many code-compliant homes would be coated with frost and ice during cold, windy winter weather. In fact, many are, though the homeowners never see it. Then, skipping down here, he says an experienced drywaller that he knows brings a windshield scraper with him just so he can brush off ice off the plastic vapor barrier before he puts up wallboard in fully heated homes. This happens in lavish, expensive, custom-built projects too. The energy waste is as dire during the summer weather. Now, he says here that homes are required to have walls with an insulation rating of R20, yet my own observations suggest that it's far less. Discrepancies like this put me on a quest for answers, and what I found raises serious questions about the value of fiberglass insulation that's routinely used in 3/4 of all Canadian homes. We're going to skip where he talks about Owens Corning developing fiberglass in 1932, and we're going to go here. He's talking about 2 pivotal research papers that have been done by Oak Ridge National Laboratories. He says the first comes from the Roof Research Center from Oak Ridge National Laboratories, and they're testing fiberglass now. Scientists there discovered that fiberglass attic insulation delivers only 50%, that's right, 50% of its rated thermal performance at -28. As cold, dense air makes its way into the vented attic space, it moves down through the fluffy fiberglass in a way that doesn't happen when bats are rated in the lab. And the colder the air gets, the worse that the fiberglass performs. Second thing, another study is Canadian, conducted by Dr. Tony Shaw of Brock University in St. Catharines. He analyzed the energy consumption of 2 nearly identical homes built side by side to code standards. The difference between the 2 structures was the walls. One had 2x6 wall studs insulated with R19 fiberglass. The other had walls with structurally insulated panels, SIPs, rated to R17. Under wintertime field conditions, this is how I like it, field conditions, the walls of the SIPs home delivered their exact rating of R17. The internal closed cell foam insulation in these panels isn't subject to air infiltration, so thermal performance remains high and consistent. The walls of the fiberglass insulated stud frame home, on the other hand, performed at an actual, get this, actual level of only R4 because of the inevitable air movement within the hollow wall cavities. Hard to believe, but true. You can put all the building wrap, siding that you like around the house. The air still wafts through the wall cavities, carrying energy with it. In the Brock study, the code-built stud wall home lost more than 60% more energy than the SIPS home while the SIP structure costs less than 5% more to build. So if we stopped right there, just based on the evidence that you've seen from this report and what he's saying, because he's combining real world and he's referencing two Oak Ridge National Laboratory reports that we're going to get into next, but he's giving you anecdotal field evidence right there about how the fiberglass is behaving. Do you want to buy this for your house? Serious question. Is this the kind of insulation? Do you seek this out? Okay, here is the Oak Ridge National Labs report bulletin. It's talking about fiberglass batts, labeled versus installed performance. I think you know where this is going. Questions that they are asking here: labeled versus installed performance. Why were they tested? According to Oak Ridge National Labs, builders, architects, designers, and homeowners want energy efficient walls. The best way to determine how insulation systems perform is to build and test full-size walls. Can't R values be used to compare insulation systems? R values are a good starting point, but they are results of small, meticulously prepared laboratory samples and do not necessarily reveal how an insulation system performs once installed in actual buildings. Different insulation systems with the same laboratory R value can deliver much different levels of comfort and energy efficiency. What did the research find? The researchers found that the fiberglass batts deliver far less than their labeled R values in real walls as shown in figures 3 and 4. Where did the R value go? Technically, the R value doesn't change because it is based on scientific laboratory test claims by the fiberglass manufacturers. However, Oak Ridge Labs research reveals the following. R19 labeled fiberglass batts have an R value of 17.4 before they're even installed. The R19 fiberglass batts have an average R value of 17.4 when installed perfectly. The scientists installed the batts before installing the exterior sheeting to precisely fit the batts in place from both sides. Now, understand what he's saying about perfect fit. We're going to come back to this in a second. R19 fiberglass batts have an R value of 13.7 when installed as commonly found in actual walls. Okay, that's going to be huge. That's going to be important. Why? Because here's your charts. Look to the right here. So, right away, they're saying that I don't care what's on the bag. Fake news, right, folks? You've heard of fake news? Well, this is fake news right here. R19? No, it's not. Starting out at 17.4, 8% less than what you thought. But when installed, they're saying 28% less. Now, how well do you think it's going to go for installation when you've already put in an inch or two of closed cell spray foam? It's going to be lumpy and uneven, and you're not going to be able to fit it in perfectly. Now, I know there's going to be people out there that tell me that my guy that I hire does it just fine, and that's fine. I'm not going to argue with how well your guy does it. Maybe he does get the foam pretty even and consistent so you can stuff the stuff in there and the fiberglass and it not have an issue. But is this going to be indicative of most people's installation experience? No. You're going to have a guy that's going to be maybe even 2 or 3 inches in a very tight, small cavity, or maybe he's going to give you even less. Do you see where this is going? Do you see what we're going to do? If the fiberglass insulation on its own cannot stand up to when our R20 is going to rate out at an R4, and if a blow-in application rates 50% less in the attic, then what is really insulating the house? What is taking the primary weight of the insulation? And the answer is the spray foam. The spray foam that you've put in at 1 inch or 2 inches is doing what, 95% of the work, maybe even 99% of the work. What are you really going to gain by putting this 28% loss product in front of the foam? I don't know. Here's the Oak Ridge National Labs test report. It says spray foam outperforms fiberglass in attic insulation performance tests. For years, spray foam contractors have been frustrated by prescriptive code requirements that mandate extremely high R values in attics, particularly in cold climates. So they said that in 2005, July, the Spray Foam Alliance, that's SPF&Batt, contacted R&D services to test low-density water-blown spray foam insulation and 2-pound density HFC 245FA blown foam insulation systems in attic thermal performance climate simulator at Oak Ridge National Laboratories. The spray foam assemblies were compared to typical blow-in fiberglass insulation attics applications. So let's get down to the results. The test results demonstrate that both low-density and medium-density spray foam installed to the underside of the roof deck in attic assemblies maintain a much higher effective R value at both low and high temperatures than fiberglass insulation. The SPF systems maintain 74% and 83% respectively of reported R value at low outside temperatures compared to 46% for fiberglass assemblies, 61 and 67% of reported R value at high outside temperatures compared to 51% fiberglass assemblies. Attic temperatures of low density and medium density spray foam assemblies averaged 77 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit at high outside temperatures and 60 to 61 degrees Fahrenheit at low outside temperatures compared to an average of 107 high outside and 7 degree Fahrenheit at low outside temperatures for fiberglass assemblies in tables 5. So what we are talking about in the Flash&Batt world is, it is clear, the evidence is clear, that the fiberglass insulation left on its own does not perform well, and therefore it is inferior in many ways to deal with air leakage and how it's thermally going to behave for the rest of its life. So yes, we are wanting to put the 1 inch or the 2 inch or the 3 inch of foam insulation in place, but what is the purpose of going back to this inferior insulation that we've already established isn't worth our time and our effort? Hence why we're looking for spray foam in the first place. Why are we going back to it to supplement R value? And the answer is cost. Because somebody doesn't want to pay for all the insulation value in closed cell or open cell foam, or particularly closed cell. So my point on all of Flash&Batt is the people that are advocating for the Flash&Batt system are really proving how 1 inch or even 2 inches of spray foam is outperforming anything that we would get in higher R values of a combination system or even a fully batted system. The 1 inch is probably more than enough to achieve code compliance if we were really looking. If spray foam was allowed to perform like glass does, we'd only need 1 inch. We'd show up, spray 1 inch in a house, and that'd be it. And we'd probably outperform it. And I talked to some old school spray foam guys when I first got into the business 20 years ago. And they said to me, and these guys went back spraying foam from the 70s. They said, take your pick. 1 inch of spray foam closed cell or 12 inches of glass. They'll pretty well do the same thing thermally. And I was like, wow, really? And they're like, yeah, you go and insulate walls 12 inches thick and 12 inches in the roof on a metal building or wood building, and it'll do the same amount of heat loss in that same building if we had just gone and put a 1 inch closed cell spray foam. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. And I think the evidence is showing that. So I don't believe in the Flash&Batt system. I don't. The spray foam is far superior, and the fiberglass is far inferior. So why am I going to go and use such an inferior product that's wrought with a whole bunch of issues to begin with to supplement something? Let's just kick it to the curb. Let's build up the value. Suck it up, buttercup. You're just going to have to pay and move on. And I'm not even addressing here the issue of whether you put a poly vapor barrier on the inside or not. I guess you wouldn't. I mean, if you had your vapor barrier with the spray foam, but I mean, code compliance calls for 1/3, 2/3, that you're not going to be more than 1/3 into the rated insulation assembly. So there's a code problem there with showing compliance. Yeah, I think if you've got enough closed cell insulation on the inside of a building that you're not going to have a water problem from a thermal standpoint, but you might have a water problem from an air leakage standpoint. So if you do have a batt in front of the foam, the bat is going to be able to absorb the water that's coming in through a seam or through a crack or a stud that twists and breaks your caulking seal. So did you put caulking in? Did you put poly up? If you did and the water's in there, are you now having a wet bat on the inside and it's trapped between the closed cell foam and the poly on the inside? I suppose you could. There's no real great studies for that. But the crux of all of this comes back to, why are we putting such a knowingly inferior product that doesn't really perform, and it has all these variables that change how it performs? Why are we putting this product in front of an awesome, amazing product that is needed in order to allow it to work well? Like, if you had somebody on your crew that continually showed up late, showed up drunk, had an attitude problem, I just don't think that you would put them with your A-team guys when it came time to get your job done. You'd kick them to the curb, let them go, and stick with the stuff that you know works. So I know this is a little more unorthodox. If you clicked on this for Flash&Batt, and I'm sitting here talking about the specs, but I think you need to see just how well, realistically, how well is the bat performing. And since it's not performing all that well, why are we trying to revert back to this to supplement something? Like, realistically, the spray foam at 1 inch or 2 inches is what's carrying all of the weight in that structure, and that's amazing. So hope this helps guide some people. I have had some people asking the questions, should we be using open cell foam? And I think we'll do a follow-up on that one after, but I think you know where that's going to be going. So click on the like, the subscribe, the share, send this to somebody who's thinking about doing this, and comment. I'd really like to know your feedback on what you think. Catch you on the next one.